Hi and welcome back to 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏𝗧. Today, guys, we're jumping down into the world of Vechain, specifically talking about the price action of VET. As we get into this, if you do find it useful and informative, hit the like button. Really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe? Tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏𝗧. Right, with all that said, done, and out of the way, let's jump on down to the charts and take a look at what's going on with Vechain. Okay, guys, so we're going to start with this weekly view, and we're going to really just hone in on what is going on about the kind of the bigger structure, right? And if we're ever in doubt over the kind of price action of any particular altcoin, really, it's good to zoom out and actually take a look at the structure of the weekly chart, make sure everything's on track. So we're going to just take a look at this briefly. I know a lot of people who are familiar with the channel will be very familiar with this weekly chart. It comprises of 5 impulsive moves to the upside. Okay, this is basically our Elliott impulse waves 1 through 5. There are 3 waves up, 1, 3, and 5. And there are 2 waves down, 2 and 4. Okay, quite simple to kind of follow. This really started back in March of 2020, where we started Wave 1. Wave 1 peaked out, I think it was August time, 2020. Wave 2 bottomed out by late November. And then obviously Wave 3 peaked up here in April, right? So from March 2020 and April 2021, we'd seen 18,295% in gains. Now, to put that into context, the same time period, Bitcoin was 1,600, Ethereum 5,100. So those safer bets in the space, if that's what you want to refer to them as, drove significantly less profits for your portfolio than Vechain. And I know Vechain has got a lot of criticism in the space, right? People say it doesn't do anything, it go 1 step up, 2 steps back, etc. Simply isn't true, right? I mean, it's true if you bought it at the top of Wave 3 and you're not patient enough to wait, okay? Because ultimately, this is investing. It's not gambling. It's not instant and gratification for, basically, you buy it and then the very next day it goes up 1,000%. It doesn't work like that, okay? If it was cheap enough for you to buy it at the time, you're going to have to be patient enough to ride it through the process that it has to go through. Okay, so obviously 5 impulsive waves from March 2020. Where do we actually see this thing finishing? About March 2022. So it's a 2-year process, right? So we can take a look at this whole entire process, moving from the real cheap area where Vechain was all the way down here at, a fraction, 1/10 of a cent, okay? Fantastic prices to be buying up Vechain, right into the highs that it got up to, where it was 27.9 cents. Okay, where we actually see this thing going for that 5th wave, well, we see this at $1.20, okay? And, that might seem like an absolutely crazy number, to considering it was 1/10 of a cent down here when the bull run started. But we actually take this a scientific approach to this. I don't just pluck numbers out of thin air. And in order to get Vechain up to $1.20, we'll require quite a significant amount of adoption for Vechain. Or, put another way, quite a lot of, V10 investors who don't really know what they're doing, just FOMOing into anything that's cheap, which is what happened in 2017 and why so many projects absolutely went parabolic. The same thing again happened pretty much in early, or let's say late really, 2013. There were fewer coins on the market, but basically it was parabolic runs nonetheless, and this is because retail investors are chasing money. And you see this all the time, specifically with many altcoins, including Vechain to a degree, is basically people are chasing the green candles, and then they get stung when they get to the top of one of these waves and they pull back down, right? So $1.20 is very, very achievable for Vechain in this particular cycle. Okay, it doesn't actually take a lot of money to move the needle significantly to the upside. Okay, and I know people will often say, what about market capitalization? There's a lot of circulating supply. Yes, there is. Okay, and I think a lot of people misunderstand what circulating supply actually is. It is a very simple calculation of the circulating supply multiplied by the last sold price. So your market cap is a simple calculation. Circulating supply multiplied by the last sold price. What it doesn't represent is the amount of money in a project. It does not represent the amount of money required to push the price up to $1, right? Okay, the market cap would equal, let's say, $86 billion in order to have a $1 Vechain, but you could never liquidate 86 million or billion vet tokens instantaneously. There isn't enough liquidity, right? So liquidity and market cap are two very different things. We don't want to be confusing those. So in terms of what market cap is and what market cap isn't, market cap is not a barrier to price discovery, okay? Liquidity could be. You can definitely argue that liquidity could be, okay? So it's important that we understand that. So $1.20 is what we see on the charts here, and this is a scientific approach. In order to get to that $1.20, we have a look at the entire trends of the bull run. Okay, so we have the downward trend of wave 2, we have an upward trend for wave 3, and a downward trend for wave 4. When we take into consideration those three trends, this is when we can actually start to see anchor 2, wave 3, and wave 4. Take into consideration those three anchor points. You can then draw a trend-based fib that takes you to a 4.236 extension of $1.20. Okay, so a lot of people call it hopium, or not this year, not this cycle, etc., etc., etc. And I think this is inexperience to understand how this market actually works. Because if you're expecting Bitcoin to go up there to 130k, 160k, maybe even 200k, right? What do you think that entire crypto space is going to do? All boats will rise, right? It doesn't just sit into one particular project. Money rolls around all the time. And when Bitcoin goes, once Bitcoin has peaked, that money will roll out of Bitcoin. It will roll into Ethereum as people chase the next set of gains. Once Ethereum peaks out, you're going to see it roll into other altcoins as well. You're going to see some pretty amazing things towards the latter part of this year and the beginning of next year. Okay, and $1.20 is where I do see the peak of Vechain. With that being said, though, we should also be very conservative, okay, because it's very, very difficult to time the markets bang on correct, right? You're not going to really get $1.20, not realistically. Very few people will ever do that. Exchanges will go down. It'll become very, very difficult to actually liquidate your position when you want to. So it's important that you actually sell on the way up. You lock in profits at very specific thresholds or very specific levels. And basically you make sure that you're locking those profits in before the bear market comes. And then during the bear market is actually where the money's made, because in the bear market is where you're accumulating very, very significant positions. In Vechain, for example, when it was way down here at these lower rates, right? That's where you buy Vechain. You don't buy it up here at wave 4. I mean, you can we call it dollar cost averaging, right? We dollar cost average at wave 2, we dollar cost average at wave 4, for example. We buy those dips, as we often refer to. But those are small positions that you would normally be buying here and here, or maybe even in here, right? They're not significant positions that make you a millionaire, for example, right? Those positions, those actual generational level wealth positions are built in a bear market, right, before the bull run starts. And that's what's really exciting about what is to come once we get past this last leg of the bull run, because you're going to take all the profits that you make selling on the way up, and then basically reinvest them, okay, during the bear market over the next few years. And then you're going to be in a very, very, very good position ahead of the 2025 bull run. So do join us for the bear market. Super exciting times do lie ahead for that. But let's get back into Vechain, right? So $1.20, as I said, is the optimized model. It's the trends that are inside the charts here. And that's kind of what we see happening. Now, of course, this is just based on what has happened already, and as per the data and the trends that we've seen so far. If something fundamentally different happens with the project, then sure, we could see things change. We could see the price move higher. But at the same time, if something fundamentally shifts and happens that's bad, you could also see that that $1.20 also disappear, and the price appreciation disappear with it, right? So it's important that we acknowledge that everything, and if Vechain just continues the way that they are, then $1.20 is the most probable outcome based on the trends, right? If, however, something fundamentally shifts and changes positively, then sure, $1.20 could be a really conservative target and we could smash past it, right? Anything is possible. But the same is also possible for the reverse, right? If something really fundamentally bad happens, like a hack or something like that with the chain, and maybe BMW or Walmart China decide, actually, no, Vechain isn't for us, and maybe they make it public that they don't want to be a part of Vechain. Maybe PwC decide to drop Vechain. Maybe DNVGL or the Chinese government decide, actually, those contracts that we've given you, we no longer want to give those to you, right? So those fundamental things could also have an impact on the price, because it changes the trends that we've seen so far. So it's important that we acknowledge it can happen in either direction. But right now, as long as things continue the way they are, $1.20 is the most probable outcome. When we jump into our daily chart, Okay, this is where we actually start to get into a more conservative model. Okay, so $1.20, as I said, is the optimized one. It's based on the trends, right? But what if we want to be conservative? What if we want to lock profits in and not have to worry about timing the market perfectly well? Well, in that case, we just take a look at the top of 3 and the bottom of 4, and these two waves here. If we just look at that one single trend, this is the trend where Bitcoin went from 65k to 28k. If we just look at the one trend, that will actually take us out to Vechain being a $1.01. Okay, and again, this is an area that you are going to find resistance on naturally because it's a psychological barrier of $1 anyway. So a good profit taking zone. Do expect to pull back at $1 anyway, and then potentially from there you would then have that second surge, that second peak, if you will, to $1.20. So yeah, I do think it's important that we also acknowledge that a more conservative price target would be $1. Okay, again, selling on the way up, maybe there's 42 cent, 64 cent. 87 cent and $1, right? Those are the areas that you might want to consider, right? I'm not a financial advisor, but you've got tools, you've got TradingView, it's free. You can sign up, you can draw it out, and come to your own conclusions, right? So interesting times do lie ahead for Vechain, right? Good progress on the horizon, right? But it's not going to be quick, right? We are talking 2022, so let's get our expectations in check, right? We don't want to hear, or specifically, in the comment section that it's doing nothing, it's too slow, and that's because your expectations are not aligned to reality in those kind of regards, right? If you're looking for those kind of stupid gains, instantaneous gains, etc., then why are you looking at Vechain, and shouldn't you be looking at something that has absolutely no utility like Shiba Inu or Dogecoin or Squid Games, if you really like to give your money away, for example, right? So let's kind of be realistic about it. It's not gambling. It follows a process and it gets to its end result when it is ready to do so. It is not going to go and feed off the hype of inexperienced retail investors. Okay, there's a lot of enterprise adoption for Vechain, right? That's ultimately its utility. That's what it's designed to do, and as a result of that, it is going to be slower. It is going to be more methodical than something like Shiba Inu, for example, or Dogecoin, or as I said, Squid Games, if you really want to give your money away to the scammers. So it's important that we understand that Vechain in its entire use case is for enterprise adoption, and therefore enterprises buy VET. Enterprises that buy VET, they buy it in millions, and they hodl it in a sync wallet, and they earn the V4. The V4, which is the second token to Vechain, is used for the gas fees. Okay, so unlike Ethereum, where you buy ETH and you use ETH for your gas fees, and with Vechain, you buy VET, and VET earns you V4, which pays your gas fees. Okay, so enterprises, when they want to make a cost neutral or a close to cost neutral position on their blockchain technologies, they use Vechain because Vechain allows them to basically own an asset that's your currency, that is appreciating asset during specific bull runs. And then 2, that basically allows them to have transactions on chain, pretty much FOC, right? Completely free of charge. And that's a really important thing for businesses, right? It's why this is a business-based blockchain technology, and why it's a 5-star TURV-rated blockchain, the only one in the world, and why so many enterprises globally have adopted Vechain, and that is continuing to grow. So it's important that we acknowledge what Vechain is and what Vechain isn't. Okay, it's a Singapore-based blockchain company. Okay, yes, they have contracts in China. Yes, they have a lot of deals in China as well. But that isn't just limited to there. It's all across Europe. It's in the UK. It's in the States, etc. It is a truly global blockchain tech, right? So it's important that we understand what it is and what it isn't. And we've done many videos on that, so do check those out if you're still unfamiliar and you're buying into the FUD and the lies that are out there. But ultimately, if we take a look at the daily chart, we have good kind of progress, right? We talk about $1. This is something we've been talking about for a while. We understand where it's kind of going in long term. There is, of course, a cup and handle pattern that came close to invalidation. We could potentially still be on track for that 22.1 cent. I still think that actually it's not really a cup and handle pattern at this point, but we are still tracking up towards our Fibonacci areas of the 618, the 702, 786, these key areas for us. So all of that is looking pretty good. So we are right now obviously getting a little bit of a reversal right here. Again, this is kind of to be expected after a bit of a surge to the upside. As you can see, good progress overall is being had. I know I've seen, in fact, a lot of comments, basically we have a step up, we pull back. People don't like the pullbacks, but they are very natural and they are very much needed. And these are, again, opportunities to, as I said earlier, dollar cost average if that is your thing to do, if you got into this a bit later or whatever. So it's important that, nothing moves up in straight lines. Understand that. Every kind of step that you take up is going to have some kind of profit being taken from experienced traders. And they'll be basically taking those profits away from inexperienced retail investors, right? It's just ultimately what it is. People who aren't patient enough and wanting to sell when as soon as it starts to drop down, maybe they sell at a loss because they're just not very good at it. They buy at the top, they sell at the bottom, for example. Okay, so ultimately, profits are being taken on that journey to the upside. Now, at this point, we're going to jump over to 𝗖𝗢.io. For those who do not know, there's a link in the description down below. 𝗖𝗢.io, they use artificial intelligence, machine learning to help us understand the underlying data and the underlying value of cryptocurrencies, right? It's completely free to sign up and to use. So, honestly, guys, check it out. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Now, Vechain here is an A3 cryptocurrency rating overall. The best rating we've ever seen the platform give is an A2, so therefore we know this is right up there as a top tier cryptocurrency right now. But we do get a little bit more detail. When we come down, we have a fear and greed index that is A3. This is a fear and greed index that is specific to Vechain. This isn't the Bitcoin fear and greed index that you see all over YouTube, Twitter, etc. This is the fear and greed index that the artificial intelligence has derived for Vechain, and right now it's an A3, which basically is indicating to us greed. The market for Vechain is greedy. This is interesting because this basically means that actually we're going to start seeing some FOMO, okay, as those retail investors maybe jump out of one project that hasn't been doing very well, and maybe they're going to be chasing some other kind of green candle. And it looks that Vechain is potentially going to be starting to get some of that FOMO activity where people are chasing those green candles. And obviously this is also a point where you start to see pullbacks, because experienced traders will also see greed as an opportunity to take profits. As new investors come in and buy, they will basically be buying the experienced traders' vet, right? So bear in mind there will be pullbacks, very natural pullbacks that we just spoke about. But it is also good to see growth overall. So greedy is good. We obviously have AMI-HAD ratio here in A2. So this is your liquidity. No problems with buying and selling Vechain. All of that is looking pretty healthy and pretty good and pretty fluid. No problem with that, right? So the Sharpe ratio in A2 rating, the Sharpe ratio represents your risk-reward ratio. The rewards outweighing the risks right now, and exposure to Vechain is a relatively good idea according to 𝗖𝗢.io's data. Now, obviously, I'm not a financial advisor. Chris is not a financial advisor. 𝗖𝗢.io are not offering you financial advice, but using the platform, it is going to give you the insights to know whether or not you want some exposure to an asset or you don't want exposure to an asset. Okay, so right now actually looking pretty good for exposure to Vechain. When we come down, we have a moving averages here in A2, 10, 50, 100 day, not a problem with any of that, and the profitability up there as an A1 rating, guys, because obviously it's been significantly outperforming Bitcoin and Ethereum and many others in the space as well. So it's good to see the profitability is right up there as an A1. So overall, Vechain's looking very, very healthy, very, very good. Good progress to be had long term. And even on this daily chart, things are looking pretty healthy as well. Good growth to be had up here on the stochastic RSI, back to the upside. When we jump into our hourly view, we take a look at the most recent price action. Definitely looks like we're going to be surging past 15.2 cent in my opinion here. Good growth to the upside. And we'll hopefully then come back down, turn 15.2 cent into a support line, and then we can continue that growth overall. Now we'll check the volume here. We can see that volume was growing. There was a huge pocket of selling volume just here, and you can see overbought, sales come in, oversold, and then we can continue that growth again. Now from here, the volume actually continued to drop, right? And then we started to see some more volume come in, push the price up, the volume dropped down, and now we're growing the volume again. There's a little bit of selling pressure right now on the resistance of 15.2. Loads of room to grow on our stochastic. So if we continue to grow that volume, we can come up higher than 15.2. Maybe we'll go up to about 16 or so cent. Back test, turn 15.2 cent into a support line, and then continue that growth as we continue to the upside. As we talk about going up to the 618 area of the chart. So overall, everything's looking very, very healthy for Vechain right now, specifically on the smaller time frame. Again, we talk about the daily time frame as well, everything's looking pretty healthy there, as we are talking now about moving up nicely towards some of these key areas. Once we are past the 786, this is the 23.1 cent zone, get the closed candle up there, preferably a weekly closed candle. Then we really are talking about setting new all-time highs. Okay, so we're not too far away from it. Give it some more time, and we are going to be steadily moving our way up there. Once we enter all new all-time highs, that's really where things get going. Some real FOMO will kick in on, and we'll start seeing some pretty interesting candles appear. Now, guys, if we are ever in doubt, as I said earlier, we zoom out. We pay attention to that weekly chart. The weekly chart is king. The weekly chart is a cheat sheet. It shows us where we are going on the bigger picture. We don't want to get too focused in on the smaller time frames. As a long-term investor, it's important that we acknowledge where we are going as a longer time scale. If we just look at the hourly or the 10-minute, the 15-minute, whatever chart you're looking at on the smaller time frames, you're going to get confused, you're going to get lost, and you're not going to see the bigger trends. The weekly chart gives you the trends. It gives you the idea of where we are going, how we're getting there, and what that looks like. The daily does it in a pretty good way as well, but again, has a lot of noise in it, so it's good to zoom out and pay attention to the weekly. Guys, I'm going to leave the video there. If you have found it useful and informative, hit that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.